Hello and welcome to episode 120 of the Adoption and Fostering podcast with me, Scott Casson-Rennie, and himself,
Al Coates. This is weird, isn't it?
It is weird. I'm going to shut my eyes now.
But
I'm just going to do this blind.
I could arrange that. My children are around.
Well, yeah. Basically, the reason that we're talking like that is because we are actually in the same room.
Yes.
With each other for the first time.
There's at least 2 meters between us, though, thank heavens.
To be fair.
And
but that's the first time in 15 months.
Yeah. And that's what the court order says. At all times.
Yeah. It's quite unusual doing it like this. I mean, we've not done too many in the same room anyway, but...
Yeah, that's maybe 3 or 4.
Yeah, we've done... none in the last 15 months, so it's quite, and a lot of things have changed, like, you know, we have a different view. We've got chickens outside nowadays. We have
a lot of water under the bridge. This feels really I'm really quite unnerved by this. I feel like I've lost my I normally have like my game face, and I come and I'm like, and I run up and down the stairs and I do star jumps, and I kind of like do all these, you know, and then all of a sudden just sat in a room with you is really quite
boring.
Yeah, as Donald Trump would say, low energy, very low energy.
To be fair, we've been working today, so our energy levels peaked about lunchtime, and then you cut the grass like proper heterosexual male should over your lunch. It
is Pride Month, so be careful what you say.
Oh yes, yeah. I cut the grass before I came away.
What?
Yeah, I know. I was just making
light of my heterosexuality.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. Anyway, yeah. So here we are.
Yeah, and we've been together today because we've got cunning plans, but can we drip feed some of those plans out, because some of them are a bit uncertain at the moment, aren't they? That's for sure, yes.
Yeah.
So we can say that on the 26th of November we're going to revive our podcast party conference thing that we did last year, because it was such a flaming success, wasn't it?
It was, yeah. And I mean, part of it was to do with the fact that it was a online-y get together, but we're not going to say what the topic is yet, because
we haven't got any speakers.
Well, we have, but we just need to confirm the speakers.
Yeah.
But the whole point of that day last year was to kind of just provide a space where people could come along, they could have some serious kind of discussions, but also a little bit of
a laugh.
Bit of a laugh. I hate saying that when it comes to all this sort of stuff, but you need to have a laugh.
Well, it's got to be on. It's got to be light-hearted, hasn't it? Online, you can't just,
Exactly. And when we choose our speakers as well, we like to think that they have a bit of a humorous side to them as well.
Well, yes. So
that it's not all kind of academic and serious, and
I feel like you're bringing us on a thin ice there. Why? Academia can be very, very.
No, I don't mean that. I mean, like, as an example. Well, no, I'm not going to give any examples, because if I say that example, then I'll mention someone who we're hoping is going to do it. But there's lots of academics who are very much fun.
I find, and Nick, we shouldn't speak ill of her while she's not here, but Beth Neal, I find Beth Neal is just, because I remember I've read stuff of Beth Neal and I just didn't know, and then she's as dry as sticks, but in a funny way.
But in a funny way.
Yeah.
And the times that we've had her on the podcast as well, you don't know which way it's going to go.
Yes, but she kept us in line, didn't she?
She does.
When
she did
the spoon, talking spoon. Excellent. We must
having 2 children.
Naughty children.
Yeah, we must. Yeah.
I feel like we've digressed before we've even gressed.
Well, yeah, we have, but we had to set the scene. We're together.
It's true.
Yeah.
Everything is good, yeah.
It's the beginning of June, and, things are looking good.
Yeah.
I'm half vaccinated. You're fully vaccinated, because obviously there's a few years between us, so,
Oh, you've cut me deep. I got special treatment because I'm special.
You are special.
Yeah. I can't think why I'm special now. I'm sure my mother told me I was. When she put me in that provision. No, we shouldn't joke.
No.
So that's all good. But today we obviously plan what we're going to do, and we have thoughts about what we're going to do. So we thought
Al plans. I just turn up.
You are the talent.
Yeah.
Well, Yeah, literally. You said the man.
We did an Instagram live earlier, didn't we?
Oh,
in your garden.
Yeah, follow us on Instagram.
Yeah, and or not, and I wouldn't actually, because our content is rubbish. But essentially, before he started recording, he said, "I've not really got a face for Instagram."
Ain't no filter going to fix that.
Yeah. Anyway, if you do want to laugh, go over to Instagram. Look at our latest.
What is that? Do we even have
live?
Do you have a tag or something into it? In Instagram?
No, because when you set up some weird.
What would our name be on it? And if you, dear listener, please go and follow us on Instagram and follow us.
It's adoption_fostering_podcast.
All right, that's it. Yeah. That's fine. You'll find us.
But anyway, the live that we did earlier, you can see us playing with filters and sunglasses and bows in our hair and everything. It's quite hilarious. And
announcing that we're doing something the 26th of November. So keep your diaries free. Yeah. It's a Friday. We'll be running the same sort of format as before, but it'll be like 9:30 till whatever, 2:30.
And it will be very much similar pricing as it was before as well.
Yes, cheap and cheerful, stack 'em high.
Yeah.
Never mind the quality, feel the width.
The adoption equivalent of Lidl or Aldi or Quick Save.
Quick Save, yeah.
Quick Save,
yeah. Yeah, the one stop.
Didn't they fail as well? Yeah.
Probably, yeah. Probably.
Anyway,
this is the rambling episode. No, but so I thought it'd be really good to talk about the issue of when. Well, we've got some. Should we do the news before we get into the subject? Because there is some news items which are not that dissimilar. Last week, did you see that in the Guardian and a few other places that the whole issue of biological mums asking for apologies in relation to the sort of state homes in the UK and forced adoption? Did you see that?
I did.
What do you think? Go on.
Well, what did I think? I mean, there's. See, we're only 5 minutes in, and here we go. My mind is going. There's something in it. I will say that.
Well, of course, there's something in it.
No.
What do you mean? There's something?
No, but listen to what I'm going to say. It's who. So it's similar to the apologies and the what was it? So when gay people used to be arrested.
Oh, and it was criminal.
Yeah, when it was a criminal offence to be gay, or the age limits and stuff, because that's all changed over the years. And people who had criminal records, that was kind of, it's not the same, I know, but it's a similar kind of thing. But who's responsible for that? Because we're talking a lot of years ago now, aren't we? In some
70s,
not all, but
60s to 50s.
Yeah.
That's 70 years ago, yeah.
And whilst I believe that it's right that we should be kind of removing that stigma from them, and there is nothing that anybody can do to change what happened. And I guess just part of me is kind of thinking to expect. I don't know. I just think we're in 2021, and it's hard to say. Why are you laughing?
Because it's just really unnerving sitting listening to you talk as opposed to seeing you through a screen.
Oh, right.
But keep going.
Yeah. No. I was just going to say it's 2021. So that I want to say that if we're asking the current government for an apology,
the current government, that's going to work, isn't it? We don't want to be political, but yeah.
No, but
But what is the apology for?
Well, that's my point. What is it for? Yeah, and there's also like a lot of we know about stigma, and we know about things changing over the years. I keep on wanting to relate it back to gay people. That's not right to do that. But if you think about even now, a lot of people still have this kind of this idea that gay people are homophobes. Gay people aren't homophobes, but gay people may be I'm just going to say the word paedophiles, right? That's still something that
stereotypes that linger, don't they?
There's still stereotypes, and again, it's not the same. But I just I think it's right that something needs to happen, but at the same time, it's not it's not going to.
But what about Ireland? Because you obviously live in Ireland, and that came. Was that the end of last?
Yeah, October, wasn't it?
And so that the Irish government made an unequivocal. There was no ifs or buts. It wasn't one of these kind of politicians' apologies, was it? It was just an absolute. We were wrong, and we apologise.
Yeah, and again, a lot of that, and have learned over the last couple of years, living over there, that the church has, had a massive influence over stuff like that, because Ireland used to be run by the church, even though there was, a government and,
But they were hand in glove in a way that...
Yeah.
Is not necessarily in a way that is reflected in the here, is it?
I don't think so, no. But then, the kind of stigma attached to a single mother in the 60s, out of wedlock, having a child, some of the stories connected to that piece last week, when you read them and you think, well, this, like, in this day and age, that would not happen,
But for me, the complication in the UK, I mean, the Irish one, I think the society is different, the comparisons, but it's parents that were sending their children there.
Yeah, that's the thing. Yeah. So who is the person that needs to? Yeah, and I think that was covered actually. Now you've mentioned that was covered, wasn't it? Because it was the parents, and it was their impression of how they would be seen as parents, and their kind of.
The stigma, protecting their children potentially.
Well, potentially yes, but also their own kind of reputations. Oh, you've had you've got a child who's had a child out of wedlock, or at the age of 15, 16. That kind of thing. So who's responsible for that? I don't know. Society? Is it a societal thing?
Yeah, I
mean, back then.
So were the government providing a service? What was the government who provided the service?
Yeah.
So the church, it's the government, but the service was there because people wanted their children, and it's all this murkiness.
And I think when you think about the differences between the kind of Magdalene laundries in Ireland, not all of them, but the number of, I mean, it's not far from where we live actually. Tuam is kind of, there's a mass grave of babies, and that's, so it's a little, I mean, I don't know enough about it to be able to say it was this and it was that, but I know enough to know that it was a little bit of a different circumstances, and a lot of that was to do with the church back then, the Catholic Church back in those
and
days.
There was no birth records, and there was the care that the children and the mothers received. But I think reflecting on what the forgive my pronunciation. Taoiseach, yeah. I was thinking Taoiseach.
Yeah.
I thought it must be more complicated than that. So the Taoiseach had made an unequivocal apology, but I think he included, he spoke for parents and families. He said, but we got it wrong. As the government got it wrong, the church got it wrong, but we as brothers and fathers and whatever, we got it wrong as well. So maybe there is something.
Yeah, maybe
like
there
that.
is. I mean, now we've kind of fleshed out a little bit. Yes, I can see, but I do think that society owes those parents an apology as well. You know? And the children of those parents who've been affected by being placed with strangers, because effectively that's whether it was happened when they were 3 days old or 3 weeks old or 3 months old. It's we know that that's how it can often feel.
But that then feeds into the current debate, doesn't it, around adoption, and the language of forced adoptions has again been sort of transferred onto this. And I've heard cleverer people than me sort of talk about the idea, well, it's non-consensual adoption. Is that semantics? Still forced adoption?
I know.
It just
there's a debate there, isn't there? There is a debate there, because you're right. If a parent who's had their children removed and placed for adoption, if they say no to the adoption order, then
it's pretty damn forced.
That's could be classed as a forced adoption, couldn't it?
Yeah, it's a nice way of saying forced adoption. Non-consensual adoption.
Exactly.
Yeah, it just feels like that debate isn't going away, is it? We're never going to get to a point where, as a society, we kind of go, "Oh, right, no, we've decided adoption is okay."
Yeah. No,
I do think that I often reflect. If you could turn the clock forward 100 years and you could write the history of adoption, like who won? That's how I say everything. Who won? But where would we be positioned? People like us who are adoptive parents, and we're maybe bad examples, but where would we be positioned? Perceived? Put my teeth in. Would we be perceived as being on the right or the wrong side of it?
Yeah, I know, and I think I ask myself that question quite often. No, never mind 100 years.
Just about everything, really.
Well,
don't you?
I mean, but particularly as a parent,
those shorts,
That's
right, cut off jean shorts. That's so not so 1990s. Anyway,
I feel like I need a blanket to cover my knees up now.
we tapped and ball.
What were you saying there? Because I had a thing to say. Yeah, and things like I question that all the time. I do question whether I did the right thing, or I wouldn't change it, don't get me wrong, but when I'm challenged on adoption, I'm similar to you. Over the last however many years that I've been involved in adoption, my thoughts and my opinions of it have changed. I can't say whether I'm pro it or not.
Yeah.
But as a parent through adoption, my life is my life, and I wouldn't change that.
We are where we are.
Yeah.
You can't undo that, can you?
No. And, we both love our kids to bits.
So do we need to apologise to our children?
Well, this is the thing.
Oh.
But then what would we be apologising for? Would we be apologising because we were naive enough to think that we would make a difference to them, so therefore we try to kind of shoehorn them into our lifestyles and our way of thinking, etc., until you get to the point where you go, actually, that's not how this works, because, the biology is different. My children were older, 7 and 8. They came with a number of things that
formed little people.
Yeah, they had formed opinions on things. They had
still do, apparently.
Well, exactly. Yeah. So so what would I apologise for? I'd probably apologise for making the assumption that they would fit into my opinion of how they should grow up in my family.
And that's really subtle, like subtle nuance, isn't it? That you. Yeah, because would they want an apology? That's the other thing.
That's the other thing.
Yeah. Because you hear voices online that would say that we should self-flagellate, but I'm not sure that my children would see it in those terms. Yeah. And then the accusation would be, well, they're fogged adoptees.
Yeah, exactly.
And my children would probably punch them if they said that.
Yeah, because
that language is just that language is othering people who don't have your opinion, isn't it? It's kind of a convenient way. But blimey, I think we are on the.
You're going there. Yeah, you are going.
The rock. Yeah. Tell me, you did something last week, and I haven't. You.
I did many things last week.
You did. Well, I know you're living a life of leisure, so amongst a very short list of things you did,
rude.
You got up on Tuesday. You got dressed on Wednesday, and by
I actually didn't get dressed on Wednesday. It was Thursday before I got dressed, and then just in time for the weekend.
Well, on Thursday you did you worked at Adoptee Futures, or worked, or you participated in the
the Festival of Debate. Put my teeth in that. Festival of Debate. That was an event that was run by Adoptee Futures, which is Annalisa and Shania, who are two. I mean, I didn't even know until they introduced themselves. They only met in the first lockdown online, and they've kind of. They're just like they're Trojans. They are literally on their horses and they are galloping. So they've set up Adoptee Futures and Armel. You can find them all on Twitter. And they came up with this event for the Festival of Debate. Now it's interesting because they asked one of us to go on, didn't they? And I got there first.
And it was literally I was going, that'd be interesting. We should talk about that. And they said, one of you or both of you. And you went, I'm coming.
Yeah.
And you kind of did.
I'm sure there was more to the conversation.
No, you did to me.
Yeah.
Anyway, was it? I was gracious.
Because sometimes I don't get asked that often these days. And you, you your social work thing that you do, you get asked to do lots of things.
And I just thought, I get everywhere.
I'm going to do it. But then the speaker list grew, and I noticed it was like a speaker list of adoptees, as in adult adoptees. And I guess I was sitting there going, I was sat there thinking, is my voice relevant in this?
Or am I going to be kind of vilified as that?
Yeah. And to be fair, I did. And in their defense, they came back to me straight away to put because with it being pitched as Festival of Debate, a debate to me means we discuss and then we debate. So of course in my head I had visions of
rotten fruit being
basically online through Zoom, and then kind of someone delivering baskets to my door with rotten fruit in it and throwing it all over me. But so that was my concern. My other concern was, as the guest list or the speaker list grew, it was all adoptees, and I thought
I dodged that bullet then. Yeah. I was thinking,
but I thought I'm not sure that this is the space. Like maybe they've just gotten me confused with somebody else, kind of thing. But again, it came back to me straight away saying, no, we've got this and we've got that, and there was like 4 or 5 adopted adults there. Dawn, who was one of them, the lovely Dawn, who has done some stuff with us in the past. Dawn, yeah. And I have to say the event was amazing. There was over 100 people there on last Thursday night, online. There was lots of discussion in the chat and in the Q&A. I think it's probably the most honest I've ever been about adoption, without thinking I wanted to put people off, because what I was conscious of was when you've got an audience kind of, so when you've got an event being pitched to, as adopted adults being present, the majority of the audience may be adopted adults. And I think that what I wanted to do was, if there was anybody else there who thought, well, I'm just going to find out a bit more about adoption, that whilst it was open and honest, it was also balanced. So I mean, it went quite deep, and to be fair, on both Annalisa and Shania, they thought an hour and a half would be long enough. Now, that's the only criticism I'd make of them. An hour and a half is never going to be enough for this sort of, we just didn't cover everything, but there was a lot of things discussed, and including, what we've discussed on here before about contact and, the risk assessment that we do of the birth family when we don't, I'm going to keep harping on about that now that everybody seems to think that that's a thing. So I'm like, well, I came up with it, so I'm going to keep on saying it.
Patent it.
Well, because it's right. Is it not right? It is right. I'm sure it's right. And the other thing as well, I can't remember what that was.
The two exciting things you thought over lockdown.
And I forgot one.
Damn.
But it was, I wasn't able to take part on Twitter because we were on screen all the time, so I wasn't able to do my usual switch the screen off or sit in my chair and just tweet. But it was a brilliant event. It really started a different side to this conversation, where rightfully so, adopted adults are seeing an opportunity to have their voices and doing something about it, rather than just sitting behind a keyboard and venting about it
as individuals.
They're coming together collectively. And the only other thing I'd say about it is, and I said this both to them, this is worth its weight in gold. And if they're going to do it, they need to do it properly. And we shouldn't be taking advantage of their knowledge and their expertise, because this is serious stuff, and these guys are of that generation where our children come from. And agencies and all the people that may engage with them, these guys are the professionals. You can no offense, but you can put your social work stuff to the side.
Offense taken.
These guys are the professionals. They know what they're talking about, and we need to make sure that they're not taking advantage of.
But I think it's the first time. I mean, everything else has been done. I think about like the adoptees. And the adoptables, which are all done through facilitated by adoption agencies. And this is the first time I can think of that where an organisation by adoptees for adoptees with adoptees is they're doing their thing. And that is an absolute sea change and a potential game changer, because there's been no unified voice or no one place. If you wanted to get the views of adoptees, you have to literally go and find a adoptee and say, what do you think? To have and I'm sure within that, any given group, like adopters, you get a spectrum of views. But I would imagine there's themes that everyone agrees on. And so things like the adoption reference group, adopter reference group, and the special guardianship reference group, there's no adoptee reference group, because there's no unified voice, is there?
But you have challenged that, haven't you?
Well, I've realised that if you ask Krish Kandaya a question on Twitter, he will answer. That's as simple as that.
I mean, let's see what the outcome is, but he answered. It's there.
Yeah, we should get him back on soon.
We should. Yeah, maybe. Yeah, maybe soon. Yeah. And I was going to say something else about it as well. I think that so another thing that I was a bit concerned about was everybody saying that adoption was a bad thing, in terms of we are adopted adults. I mean, had Pam Hodgkins, who was the founder of NORCAP,
who's an adoptee.
She's an adoptee, and she went on to become a social worker. And obviously NORCAP got kind of
what's NORCAP stand for? Do you know?
I can't remember what it stands for, but I know that they were kind of a charity set up to be able to access files and facilitate that kind of thing. That's I mean, it's a big thing, wasn't it? And for that to be facilitated by adoptees again, so that's what I'm saying. We need this, and NORCAP to me should still be here. Somebody should have kind of said, yes, we'll take that on. Whether it be one of the big agencies, but there wasn't that kind of no, adoption is a bad thing. It was about understanding that adoption is trauma. That was the myth, because adoption is trauma, and it's, whether you're looking at it from an adoptive parent perspective or an adoptee perspective, there's trauma everywhere. We're all dealing with it in our own way. But as adoptive parents, we need to go into it knowing that, rather than thinking, we're going to solve everything just by being their parents.
It's kind of this mythology that just remains. And I'm in part of lots of groups, I often say. So like Facebook groups, and I was part of quite a group for young adopters, or like young in their journey. And they were asking questions, and one comment came back, so I'll not make it identifiable, but they'd said, things are okay with our 3-year-old, settled in really well, just the normal 3-year-old tantrums. And I thought, I guess with my lens, and maybe cynical or skeptical, but thinking, a child comes at 3 and they're kind of doing okay. Well, that's just not normal.
Yeah. Well, exactly.
It's not appropriate.
I mean, but also it's not just about how they're dealing with it at 3, it's how they're dealing with it at 6, at 8, at 9, and then transitions.
13, 18, 25.
Yeah. Transitions. Just saying, just putting that word in there. It might be a clue to some things that we might do.
Maybe we'll just pause at that moment and think about the word transitions. What could that possibly mean? What could I don't know. Maybe clues to pick up.
Anyway, yeah. But, the event was really good. I would, recommend, actually, we might put a link on to this because it's available on YouTube, so people can actually watch it. And it's worth the 90 minutes. It really is worth the 90 minutes. And you can pause it and go back to it, of course. But, I do doff my cap to Annalisa and to Shania because they did a brilliant job. It was very professional, very well run. Part of that was obviously the Festival of Debate, but yeah, just brilliant. And it was a really enjoyable experience.
They're coming on the podcast in a few weeks, aren't they?
They are.
And Shania has also been one of our conversations, which is upcoming soon. So they're going to. You see a lot of them around.
I was going to say, I think we're going to see a little bit more of them. And I'm more than happy to support Adoptee Futures. I think that's going to be our go-to, I suspect.
Well, yeah. I mean, to be honest, I love doing the conversations. I know you love doing it, and you just don't know what you're going to get.
No, you really don't.
You really don't. So you get. I mean, I've sat down with people thinking I was going to get X, then I got Y, and literally come away like eyes like saucers, and just thinking, blimey. And I spent a couple of hours with Annalise, and with Shania, and she is just fantastic just to hear someone, again, like Dawn, who's articulate, young, and able to hold these tensions of, trauma. Adoption is not in of itself is a traumatic event. Yeah. But I love my parents to bits, my biological and my adoptive parents. I love them to bits. But do I wish adoption happened? Of course I don't. Yeah. And they can hold all these tensions in a way that I think that some people can't. Yeah. And
I don't know if my kids have even thought about that kind of thing, I'm not sure they're old enough yet to have worked out whether they agree with it, whether they don't agree with it, whether they see the results of what happened in themselves.
Yeah, I mean, what I think is really interesting, and I did, because I was preparing for I think I mentioned this in our podcast, but I was preparing I've just got some ideas about things I'd like to do, maybe training I'd like to do, maybe conference I like to do. But this idea of identity and formation of identity, because I think that we prepare adopters for the early stages, but not identity and formation. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And I was looking, and there was the studies were kind of quite indicative of that. There's a group of people who adoption is every waking moment of the day. It's really present and really struggle with. There's a group of people who it ebbs and flows, and there's a group of people who it doesn't. Yeah. It's not, it's kind of, they just kind of go, it was what it was. Yeah. My adoptive parents and my mum and my dad, and I'm just getting on my life.
Or my mum and my mum, or my dad and my dad.
What a terribly modern world.
Or my dad.
My goodness, Scott.
I just put you back in your little box here with your stereotypes.
You've clearly
my mum and dad.
You've clearly been on the diversity training that I sent you on.
Today, I made one comment today and I got sent on a diversity training.
Yeah, honestly, an hour on a course and you're a bleeding expert. It is Pride Month, though.
Well, it is. Yeah, you're right.
That's a thing.
I mean, I'm not sure any events I'll be attending, because I'm not being funny, but I'm still a
You're
bit
not
wary.
proud anymore.
I'm a bit wary of going out still. So you've
got a pride mask.
Yeah, I do. Yeah.
That's safe.
Yeah.
Anyway. I can't remember what I was saying then. But so people, I think that but the more vocal people are the ones that have got something. It's a bit like adopters, because there'll be a whole cohort of adopters who kind of go,
how did we end up being here? Because we were vocal.
Because everything was so peachy.
Well, exactly, but we were vocal, weren't we? Why did I get invited to my first roundtable with Michael Gove all those years ago? Because obviously I had something to say.
You didn't mention that man on the podcast. You know how it makes me feel.
Why did we get put onto the what was it, the adoption champion thing with the DFE 5-6 years ago, where they released our names into the public domain without our permission? Has to be maybe we've got some comeback on that, just thinking about it.
A GDPR?
Yeah,
right.
We weren't even asked.
We'll get the podcast lawyer onto it.
Yeah.
I know he's been busy, but we'll divert him.
I'll put that on my to-do list. But
we've not even got to the subject of tonight's podcast yet.
Oh, what is the subject?
30 minutes. I'm not sure. Maybe we should shelve it and put it on another week. We're going to talk about the challenge of perhaps when families find themselves in difficult spot and social care become re-involved, and not by... they're
by
not
choice.
Invited, like vampires, not invited back into the house. They come.
Yeah.
But I think the reason I wanted to do that subject, shall we move on to that subject?
Yeah, do.
Is because anecdotally, and even if you go through some of the conversations, I remember there was Nicola's conversation. I don't know if you remember that. That was Nicola who had got the brain injury from her child, and the social. She was investigated because she'd said something harsh to a child in a moment. She was, that awkward pause.
Yeah.
Tumbleweed through the podcast studio. But she'd gone Section 47 because she'd made she'd kind of spoken, out of frustration, literally, and then she'd got assaulted and was hospitalised because of it, and then attempted suicide, and because she was under investigation, whole career on the line, after years of adversity and challenge. That's one example. That was last Easter time. But anecdotally, I know that lots and lots of families find themselves with social workers, children's and family social workers, not adoption social workers, back through the door, kind of knocking on the door, and allegations come. And just thinking about why that is, and maybe to consider what to do, because I think, you'll know people.
I mean, I do. And before we started recording, we mentioned a few names, which we're not going to mention, obviously. But when you think about the community that we inhabit, yeah, we do know people. We know lots of people. Whether it's
happened to
virtual from Twitter, yourself. I know that
at least twice
we had allegations made against us by people. I can't say who, because that's just wrong. It was just about to come out as well.
Yeah.
But that was pre-adoption order.
Me, was it?
No, it was pre-adoption order with the older two, and there was allegations made, and they were totally unfounded, as in a child said something that just wasn't quite the same as it was, if that makes sense.
A version of events.
Yeah, but in fairness, they had to investigate. I get why they had to do what they had to do. Get that. But just the way it made us feel, the way it makes you feel when you know what happened. I mean, don't get me wrong. There's some allegations are founded.
Absolutely. I mean, there was the case that wasn't in Cumbria where a child died.
Yeah. Exactly.
So how can you can't just go, they're fine.
Exactly. You can't say, well, it's always a child, because sometimes it's just not.
No.
In our case, it wasn't anything serious. It wasn't a serious issue, but it had to be investigated, and they had to make sure that especially pre-adoption order.
I mean, didn't think we were going to start talking about your.
No, I didn't think so either, actually.
But it's out there now.
It came to mind.
It's out there now. Yeah. So it's a long time ago as well, and they're adults now, and they can fight their own corner, your kids.
Actually, he'd be mortified if he knew that had happened, because I don't think, we've never...
you
mentioned it,
can't
because
protect them from it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I don't want him thinking that it was risking...
for them, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly.
The whole idea of social workers coming back in and asking them questions that may be parallel questions they've been asked in other times in life.
Yeah.
But were you... Yeah, so before we even start, the interesting thing is on Twitter, we'll very often ask people, hey, we're talking about X. We're talking about I don't know, education.
Yeah.
Anyone got any comments?
Hundreds.
Yeah. Or we're talking about post-adoption support. Hundreds. And we're talking about allegations. Tumbleweed. Now, I thought about this and I thought, well, it could be my bias, me thinking, oh, well, that just proves everyone's terrified.
Well, I mean, I think there's, again, stigma. There's a stigma attached to allegations, I think. And, there is a certain amount of
fear.
I don't want to say embarrassment, but I think there is a level of embarrassment. I mean, I know when I think back to the allegations that were made for me, we talk about fight, flight or flee. Cool, we fought. We were very fighty.
You counter-punched.
It was like, it felt like an ambush because we were invited to a review meeting and then these allegations were laid in front of us. And, like I say, they weren't serious allegations, but they were enough for us to wonder, wow,
But, yeah.
and I think that we fought because we were embarrassed that, number one, the allegations were being made, but number two, because there was a really genuinely innocent explanation as to what had happened.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's really interesting and fascinating because I think that there's a couple of things there that I unpick is that I think that families, we're not, as an adopter, you're used to social workers. You've had a lot of contact with social workers, but this is different. Yeah. It's just a paradigm shift. It's maybe not the same group of social workers. They're maybe not that informed about adoption. And their job is to investigate allegations. Yeah. And their bread and butter is allegation day after day after day. Yeah. I don't care if you're an adopter or not. They come in. Yeah. And so the tone is different. The dynamic is different. The questions are different. They want to talk to your children. Yeah. Without you potentially.
Yeah, and you're right. The investigation was completed by the adoption team.
Oh, that's helpful.
But that was good. However, the tone compared to the fluffy, you're going to be fabulous parents. The tone was completely different, and it was it was like curveball moment. And I'm pleased that I haven't been in the position where a safeguarding team have been involved. Although looking back on it, I actually can't remember who was at that meeting. I remember 2 people, but there was more than 2 people there. So were they there? Maybe they were just getting warmed up before we fought and then flew, because that is literally what we did. Because just because of the situation and circumstances, our naivety again, I keep on saying about naivety all through what we've been doing the last couple of months. We were under the impression that these children were placed with us for adoption, and that was once we were placed, it was just a case of going through the motions. But actually, no, it wasn't, and it was kind of
You've really thrown me telling me this story because I just didn't anticipate you'd tell me this story.
Well, I don't think I really share it because I think that if my son who this involved knew about it, then I wouldn't want him to think that he'd put us through that just by an innocent comment that he made.
Well, you highlight, because what I'd like to have done is, like, my plan had been, we'd talk about...
Sorry.
Well, no, it's okay. I've got some statistics about the number of referrals. There's something like a 78% increase in referrals to, contacts to children's social care. Actually...
But when is this from?
10 years from 2010 to 2020. So there's been a 78% increase. There has been an increase last year again. So the issue, it's complicated. The statistics are really quite hard to get a real measure around. But you see that something like 7 out of 10 contacts come through schools. So I think a lot of families find themselves... Schools start to have concerns, and that's other professionals. That even could be therapists. I've had friends therapists who've kind of gone, controlling parent, and again, that's when you think about therapeutic parenting, which is high structure and high nurture. And we do this on our training. We talk about it to the untrained eye. It looks like crazy parenting.
Yeah, it does, doesn't it? That's the kind of stuff that people go, I wouldn't have done that.
Your child told you F off and you give them a biscuit.
Yeah, exactly.
But then you won't let them get the bus. And you're super controlling, but then you let them assault you. They're going, this is crazy parenting. So there's so that schools might be raising that, or for their therapists or physiotherapists, or
and a lot of
woman down the
I mean,
street.
some of it comes to education. Yeah, some of it comes down to education, though, doesn't it? You know, and I mean, I know of one agency, I sat on their adoption panel actually, and the friends and family piece is like they do a session with friends and family.
Oh yeah, it's a thing, isn't it?
And it is a thing, and it should be a thing for everybody, because actually, what they share in those sessions in terms of the couple or the individual who may go on to adopt a child, it's really a key part of it for them to know that, you know, they will be parenting differently to the way that they were parented. And whether that's evident in the first year or the first 3 years, because, you know, we all know we went into this going, oh, well, you know, there's things that I would do differently to my parents. And exactly. But actually, you know, it's very different, isn't it? Whether you get to grips with that in the first couple of months or the first couple of years, it's irrelevant.
It's a work in progress around here.
Yeah. How many years?
20.
1999.
22. You're 22 this month.
Yeah, there you go.
Actually, on the 14th.
Wow.
14th, 22 years.
So there's that to take into account as well. But I do think that there's a lot to be done with education and, you know, school as an example.
Yeah.
When, you know, teachers are professionals, when I think back to 2007, if I'd have sat down in a room with the head teacher of the school, love her. I mean, she's, you know, still very...
You've mentioned her before.
Yeah,
you are very fond of her.
She is an amazing teacher, head teacher. Well, she was before she retired. And the teachers that I'm still friends with as well. They all got it. But had they not got it, I think that some of the stuff would have been a little bit different. Yeah.
So that's professionals looking at a child who's got perhaps interesting behaviour, complex behaviour, who's maybe narrative. I mean, I've worked with children who literally tell tall tales.
Yeah.
But I've also worked with children who find themselves in difficult situations, so they play a bit of top trumps. My dad's worse than your dad.
Yeah.
I've got a friend, and I can tell this story. I've got a friend whose daughter with their class, you know, all the kids are talking, and a teacher walks by and he overhears what they're saying, and one child says, "Oh, my dad abuses me." As a teacher, you can't just go, "Oh, it'll be fine." Yeah. So the process begins, and ultimately that led to the police. You know, it's a full-on. This child says, "Oh, that's the child's questions. The child's got maybe vulnerabilities because of a low life experience." She says, "Oh, yeah, my dad did sexually abuse me." So big red buttons pressed. Police round at the house. My friend, who knows what she's doing, said, "Right, okay, this is a no-brainer." My husband leaves. He leaves the house, and after about 2 days, and the process is going through, and that the child's quite perplexed by the experience, what the heck's happening, but going with it because that's what you do as social workers. And then my friend has a moment of an inspiration and goes, "Hang on, did anyone ask which dad?"
Yes, okay.
And then you can see the story plays out that is not the story, and like a whole family's turned upside down. And my story, that one of my children found themselves in a position where they perhaps were, my dad's worse than your dad, and she won.
I remember.
And I was kicked out of my house for 11 days.
That was before we were friends, and I remember sending you a message saying, "I've not seen you for a while. Where are you?" And I just got this. I think that's actually probably when we
bonded,
connected,
because I had nothing else to do. I had no one to talk to. I know,
bless you.
But a thing.
And the other thing as well, when we think about
I've
challenging.
I've told that on the podcast before.
No, I don't think you have.
No.
Oh, well done. Bit of therapy there for you, love. But when we think of challenging violent, aggressive behaviour as well, I mean, tables slightly turned maybe in a way there, but the number, and we did this in our practice day, didn't we?
Yeah.
Where we looked at, I looked at some of the data that you and Wendy, the good old Dr. Wendy Thorley, who's underground at the minute, but we're sure she'll be back at some point. You guys had done a survey, and what I picked up from that in some of the data was that the kind of this, it was. Sorry, I'll work out what I'm going to say in a minute, because I've gone down a route that I didn't expect to, so I hadn't thought it through. Yeah, exactly. But what I picked up from it was that where there's I don't want to use the word CPV because I hate it, but
It's
where
violent.
there's violence towards a parent.
Yeah.
Again, another issue is when that happens, it's like, well, you must be doing something to that child. You must be mistreating them. You must be abusing them. You must be doing something to them.
A reasonable assumption.
Yeah.
Yeah. Why is your child violent towards you?
But then when we think about those that parent from a distance, where the family unit has broken down and the child has to go and live somewhere else, a similar thing, is that people get involved in a situation. So I'm talking about safeguarding and all that sort of stuff. They get involved, but actually they're not looking at it from the perspective of what is the child's trauma? What have they witnessed? Have they witnessed domestic violence? All those things. Yeah. And so I get it. And to be honest with you, I think that this would be the same for a lot of parents, where you're seen to fail. There's stigma attached to that.
Huge stigma.
That's embarrassing. It doesn't matter how you've come to be a parent. If you look at yourself as failing and you've got safeguarding or children's services coming back into your life, I would feel that I've failed, even though I know that there's something behind it.
Well, yeah, I mean, but people reach out to me quite often and say, things have happened, situations have unfolded, and often it's often around children's there's a whole range of reasons. So, like professionals are concerned about child's behaviour or something a child says. For another example would be if you call the police because you're frightened of your child, an immediate referral is put into children's social care, so an initial assessment will be undertaken.
You've reminded me of, we've had that as well. I must have blocked these out. I've blocked them out.
It's coming back. It's like regression therapy. And that's just, and absolutely, if a family are not coping, that's a concern that goes through the process, and that's just how all police do that. Other ones being that when families raise concerns, and they say we're not coping, that if all you've got is a hammer, every problem's a nail. If you're going into a children's social care environment where, and something like I think in 2010, so I haven't got the stats for this year, 2010, there was 2.4 billion contacts with children. Sorry, 2.4 million, not billion.
Billion?
I mean, still a lot. 2.4 million, but billion, that's crazy. But 2.4 million contacts over a year's period, and that was 10 years ago. It's gone up by whatever percentage. Wow. Someone has to sit there and go, is this malicious? Is this fake? Do I need to do?
And what is the kind of the level where they get involved? What is the threshold for them to enter that kind of thing? And I mean, a lot of it is to do with the fact that we, know that children have a right to be children and, not be and be safe and all those kinds of things. And I get all that. And I think it's clear as adoption has changed over the years. I mean, when you look back at the figures from the 60s, 70s and 80s in terms of children who were neglected and abused compared to what was then called relinquished, it was minor. It was absolutely minor in comparison.
Wafer thin slither.
Yeah.
So like 1968, there was 27,000 children adopted. Easy.
Pardon me.
Just a bit of wind. We normally wouldn't get that through Zoom, would we?
No, we wouldn't.
Because
I can mute myself. I could normally mute myself. If you didn't hear it, I did just belch.
Oh, they heard it.
Yeah, they heard it. It wasn't.
It wasn't your subwoofers breaking.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
It wasn't an earthquake. It
wasn't that bad.
It's for those of the audio files who are listening and thinking, "Oh my goodness, got a safe place."
But that's the thing as well, isn't it? And
I think the complication is, and I think there's a couple of things. A couple of things that really complicate the whole issue is that one is where I don't think that children's social care are used to dealing with nice, white, well-educated adopters, and that's a sweeping generalisation.
It is very sweeping.
But that's the main cohort, isn't it? Adopters tend to be better educated.
But no, I think that adopters are seen to be middle class. And we've had this discussion before. We have had this discussion before. Yeah,
maybe, but let's not. Okay, I'll pass that.
It's something for another day.
But okay, so perhaps they're not the normal demographic that a child protection social worker or a safeguarding or a children families. It's not the same demographic. You're not going into, say, the council estate. You're going into the nice suburbs, and you're discovering a family where parenting is complicated. That perhaps the parent knows more about stuff than you.
Yeah.
And potentially they can lawyer up if they need to.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
They're articulate. They're probably from friends of mine who are teachers, social workers, who find themselves in this. And I'm trying to think. I'm not going to say who he is, but people who are top of their game. People with letters behind their name, finding themselves in that. So they are people who know how to fight, how to articulate and advocate and fight their corner. But that doesn't cut any mustard. So if you've got an insecure social worker or a social worker who's kind of that dynamic is, oh, hang on, you're coming on like you're the aggressive dad.
Yeah.
You're the angry man.
Yeah. You're aggressive with them, but that doesn't necessarily mean you're aggressive with your children.
With them.
Yeah, exactly.
And because you're assertive.
Yeah. You're arguing
your point
against what the allegation or whatever.
But the social worker has the power. Yeah. I mean, are we terrifying people who listen to this podcast?
No, I don't think we are. I think we're having a proper discussion about something that's real and that's out there.
Yeah,
And when I think about some people that I know who parent from a distance, their children are in various different settings, or they're young people, or they're young adults. They're trying to rebuild, because I think in the past it was seen as disruptions, and we all know that we don't like that word because it's not right.
Blunt.
Yeah, because what it's saying is we've had a disruption. I think you could call it a disruption pre-adoption order.
Yes, that
because
seems
potentially, and I don't know, because I'm not, I know of people who have had children placed in pre-adoption order. The children have moved back into care. Where was I going with that? I got distracted.
This is podcast going.
Yeah,
I can look you in the eye and make you feel bad about yourself.
Please don't do that.
Were you talking about people who parent from a distance and how they...
Yeah, so pre-adoption order potentially seen as a disruption, but that kind of, again, stereotype, stigma, whatever one you want to use, when the child's been living with you for 10 years and you've been part, you've all been a family, maybe even 2 children placed as siblings, and one of them just, you just cannot
for whatever reason
continue with whatever reason, and they have to kind of, but in the past I think that the word disruption meant that connection was gone, but actually that's not the case. And whether it's allegations, whether it's real life, it may just be a clash of various different things, but that in itself is a massive issue, because we're using kind of words and phrases that, again, a safeguarding social worker, if that's what they're called, may not get, that actually there's still something, that an adoptive parent will still want to continue to support that young person, whether they live with them or not, and it doesn't matter what their age.
Yeah, it is peculiar, because I know that I'm sure my she's now in her 20s, but she left home in less than ideal circumstances. Right, that's a nice way of putting it.
I was going to say something, but I'm not sure. Actually, she wouldn't mind if I did, but I'm not going to say it.
Calling his mum and dad, and we were always mum and dad, and we never stopped calling her daughter.
Yeah.
Now, on paper, that was because she was under 18, and where she went, that was a disruption, but it wasn't. No. And social care really struggling to understand the dynamic, but it was quite easy to paint it in very simple terms, or take the knowledge out of a different context and go, that is a breakdown of relationship, and you go, well, it's not, it's just we just can't live
but it's
together.
Not a breakdown of the family, is it? Because
not at all.
And don't get me wrong, there are some adopted people who don't want that kind of reconciliation, and that's fine. I get that, and that's up to the parents to deal with. That is not something that they should be trying to fight, or if that's the way it's going and that child believes that they're in the wrong place, respect it and move on and get therapy or counselling or whatever.
Just like that.
No, but what I'm saying, though, because they've not chosen to be adopted. That wasn't their choice. But that wasn't their choice, was it? It was our choice to be there to become adoptive parents.
If that was me, he said hypothetically, I would say that the door if it was me, I'd say I respect your wishes, but the door's open. Yeah,
and that's exactly how you would deal with it. But you don't then layer on all your issues onto that
I'm
child.
your dad.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And do you know what we've done for you? And we pulled you out of foster care. All these sorts of things. Because I think that's what some people feel. They feel that is the narrative that adoption,
they have that
the
right.
adoptive parent is spewing, and I think that's wrong. That's just my views on it.
This is such a rich vein of.
I think we would go down this route.
No,
seriously.
But do you think? I wonder whether it's increasing or whether it's because we're just where we are. We kind of people do contact us out of. I mean, it is just amazing that no one has got in touch with us.
Yeah.
A few people tentatively asked a few questions and then didn't.
I know. But maybe hearing this, they might think actually.
But where do people go for support? Because I mean,
and who supports them? We know of various kind of law firms that will deal with various different things, but actually it's not about the legal side. Sometimes it's just about having the opportunity to be able to go,
But you do need legal, potentially you do need legal help. You do need people because it could slip towards criminal.
Yeah.
It could, and people find themselves in the family court system or, my experience and my knowledge is most kind of, what I see often is that the system does what it does, and it kind of it starts to move, and so there's initial contact. There's a what's going on. We need to look into it. There's an investigation, and then out of that investigation, often there's a kind of like children move into a Section 17, which is children become child in need. So that means they've got a social worker, but they're not accommodated. And that's the look of the draw. You might get a social worker who kind of gets these things. It might be a social worker who kind of is still seeing that there's a parent, your parenting's not good. Worst case scenario is it goes to Section 47, whether it's a child protection plan, there's significant concerns. And of course, that's got to be on the table. But that's terrifying because that social workers can remove your children. And
I do wonder if it's joined up in that respect, where you've got, I understand I understand that some families are known to social care and may have been known for years. Through
adoptive families?
No, like birth families and stuff. So I get that, but I think if a family needs to be investigated or an adoptive family, then I think that actually the adoption service should be involved in that, and I don't think that's always the case.
No.
And that's the issue, isn't it? If you've got safeguarding coming round, and they're just assuming you're just like any other family, and they see you parenting differently, and they think, and
it's self-reporting, isn't it? If I go into, I guess any good as a professional, I would go in and I would go, right, well, tell me what's happening, and family says it's all a kid. He's got this wrong. He tells stories. That's one example. As a parent, as a social worker, I'm going to go, right. Oh, yeah.
And any logical person would think that as well, wouldn't they?
So it's self-reporting. So that, I guess that's one of the key elements is, if you find yourself in those circumstances, find the professionals who know your child and know you, who can vouch for you. Don't pick the ones you fell out with. If you're falling out with them, then maybe we need to have a different conversation about how you found yourself there.
And I do wonder, like with time, because obviously now we're more involved with adoption support within agencies, because we're applying for the ASF, and we're, so if we're a family that have needs, then we're already known to the adoption support teams.
If you're accessing therapeutic support, then people should ask. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah,
a bit deeper.
That should be a question. Yeah, it should be a question. Are you receiving any other interventions or any other support, or whatever?
Yeah.
But anybody who's involved in the support of that family should be involved.
Who's through the adoption support fund, the therapist they got reported them to children's social care.
I know who you're talking about as well.
And that was just freaking awful. Because actually it was really shoddy professionalism. They just didn't have a clue what was going on. So that doesn't work in that instance.
But I know. But if you, but they would have received that support through hopefully the ASF or something like that. So you'd have an adoption support social worker.
There's other people who can.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that, if so I'm just thinking this out loud. If I think about, it's obviously different where we live, but if we lived here and there was an allegation made or a referral or whatever, I think my first, as soon as I got that knock on the door or phone call or I'd be ringing them and they're saying, you need to come now because this is what's happening.
Here.
Yeah, and just get on your little horse and come.
So that is the top tip, isn't it?
Yeah.
Find the voices who understand your context.
And who are also...
Your GP.
Yeah.
Your teacher.
Yeah. Anybody who's witnessed this stuff as well, I mean, if they're going to school and they're, doing whatever it is at school, then, do speak to the head teacher and get them to help you with it,
Anyone who's got,
don't do it alone.
Absolutely not. You've got to cast your net out. And I think that's probably one of the key takeaways is that don't bunker down.
Yeah.
I mean, my experience of kind of going into that is that your world constricts and you become, especially if you've got other children, you think, oh, blimey, this is potentially all going to unravel. Yeah. And try not to become the angry dad. I think that's another thing. Don't be the table stomping angry dad. I mean, I question my experience because I kind of, I'm a social worker and I think I do wonder whether that hugely complicated the whole experience because I knew what was happening. So there's a lot of stuff I just knew. I know what you're going to do. I know what you have to do and I know how you have to do it. So talk to X, Y, and Z. But then I thought the just peculiar dynamics of me being a social. It's like, car mechanics fixing other car mechanics' cars. It's all a bit like, oh, I wouldn't have done it like that, mate. You know what I mean? It's like, well, it is. All professions like that. They are. Who was the last plumber here?
My cupcakes compared to my, my competition cupcakes are different.
Exactly. So there was
not
a bit
minimising the
of
discussion. Just saying.
No, it's true. It's true. I think you've got to be wise, and you've got to be. Yeah. But you've got to be conscious of how you will be seen, but be assertive in a non-threatening way. Yeah. Be firm. Get your facts.
Mm-hmm. I totally agree with that. And I think that, at the beginning of this chat, I was thinking, well, if someone came to the door and knocked, how would that look? But I think actually, if we're talking about children and young people, then it needs to be a multitude of people that are involved, and you could easily enough, if you've got a strong voice and you've got a mobile phone, then you could organise that very quickly to make sure that that actually you wouldn't even necessarily have to say anything because other people would be able to.
And that's what you want. You want to call in your friends if you've got friends.
And that's not making up. I mean, like we said earlier, there are some allegations that are founded, and absolutely that needs to be the case. So if the teacher and the therapist and the head teacher and the social worker are saying they're a bit dodgy, them lot as parents, then that's that parents look at.
And we've got I mean, this is really interesting because I think that if you look on the it's Sarah Philemore's website, and Sarah Philemore's great if you follow her on Twitter. She's the most fighty individual I've ever seen in my life. I live in a genuine fear of accidentally offending her on Twitter in case she puts me in my box.
We'll talk about her after the podcast is recorded.
Does she been on the podcast?
Yeah, no, we'll talk about her.
We should get her on because I really, really like her. But she's got a website. She talks about how the use of the word allegations that children make disclosures, saying that as professionals, you don't, as a professional, as a social worker, you don't go into the mold of we believe you. You can't tell children you believe them. You can tell children I want to listen. I'm interested. I need to know what you want about. But you can't tell children you believe them because you. And I think that my experience, I don't know whether about your experience, but a lot of my friends' experience of the police is that you get a very different response from the police because the police believe no one.
Yeah, that's true.
The default
that is true.
Is that they kind of go, right, well, fine, tell me the story, fine. And then they'll go away and then they weigh up the evidence and they're not child focused.
It's evidence.
It's all evidence.
Yeah, it is.
And I think that's one of the things to be conscious of is when you find yourself is that children's services can be child-centred. Well, not child-focused. I'm trying to think the difference. Child-centred in that everything revolves around the child. Mm-hmm. I think a better way is to be child-focused, which is a non-violent resistance kind of phraseology, is that actually you've got to see this all in context, but we've got to keep our eye firmly on the ball of the welfare of children. Yeah. But we're not building worlds around them because that's not how families work. Yeah. It's how our families become working, that our whole worlds revolve around our children. Yeah. In a way that my parents You're pulling a face. But in a way that isn't normal for a lot of other families who kind of go, we're a family. Right now, your needs are being met, and right now, and after that, it's my turn.
And I think a lot of that is to do with the fact that we don't really know the emotional age of our children. We don't know, the kind of all that sort of stuff comes into account. My older children know that they're so far advanced in many ways with their years, but actually some of the stuff is they're a lot younger, but they get that because that's a thing, isn't it?
It's really complicated. The chronological
hugely.
Age versus emotional age versus intellectual age versus academic age versus physical age.
Yeah, and it's
all over the shop.
Yeah, and we're trying to help them through that. When you think about, I don't know about you, but having my adult children at home, I'm not saying that I want rid of them, but what I'm saying is that, by now, I would hope that they could organise themselves enough, work-wise, I'm just using this as an example, work-wise, to be able to... No, they don't listen.
If they do,
they've had enough of me at home. Yeah. But as an example, work, neither of them drive yet, because I just don't think they were in that place where they wanted to have that independence. Whereas when I was 17, I was like, right, I'm going to drive because I need to get away from my parents. They're just not at that stage yet for whatever reason, and that's fine. I get that. So work becomes an issue because where we live compared to where they work, they depend on lifts. So there's
kind of a ripple effect, isn't there? Yeah,
so
unique pressures on
that's
the family.
Taxis takes out. But me, I hope I would have thought, okay, so there's 100 people working here.
You're venting your own personal...
I know, and 10 of them live in the same town as me, so let me try and work that out. Yeah. But that's not quite how it works.
Yeah, so when I was that age, I got a bike.
Yeah.
Because I just love the fact that then I can do what I want when I want.
But I wanted to drive, so, I drove, and that was it. And I didn't need to depend on people. But that's my words. In terms of depending, I'm not saying they're dependent on us. I'm just saying that that's how it feels to us.
Yeah, and that's I think the nature of children. Lots of young people who've adopted now. Some of the young people who are adopted now is that they're just they've got to deal with a lot more stuff than I ever had to deal with as a child and a young person.
But part of me, and I know we're going way off topic, but part of me thinks, well, is that where when we were parenting them that we went wrong? Did my dad say you've got to drive? I don't know if he did because I can't remember. But no, it's not a kind of I wouldn't
also
inflict that on them. If they're not ready, they're not ready.
Well.
Yeah. If they're not ready, they're not ready.
Yeah, the world has totally changed. My kids look at driving and sort of see it's slightly archaic.
Yeah. Well, they want hoverboards.
They want they want to be
space taxis,
something like that.
Ubers.
And I think the other thing that probably the takeaway from this is if you feel like you're a family that's vulnerable to this stuff, is keep good records.
Yeah. That's true, actually.
And one of the things we used to do, I had an agreement with my post-adoption support worker. I said, look, I'm going to email you things. I don't want you to do anything. I just want you to put them on the system.
Because they're dated, they're time-stamped, all the rest of it. And, that doesn't just, I'm thinking of a massive, we both know the person I'm going to just mention quickly.
Yeah.
Not adopters, but refused to do that sort of thing, to keep a diary. And bit him massively on the backside when it came to his child and what happened.
Yeah,
and it's you keep a diary, and however it is, even if you send an email to a friend that really knows you well, just to kind of document it, do it that way. It doesn't necessarily need to be like what you've done with your social work and stuff. Although if you've got that relationship, then clearly do.
Yeah, but, I mean, she spoke to her manager and said, look, it's really complicated because. Yeah. This was prior to the Adoption Support Fund. So now I think
many years ago.
Back in the day. But you're right. Prior to that, people didn't have very much contact. No reason to speak to your post-adoption support worker apart from, obviously there's some...
Well, there wasn't such a thing really, was there?
And so prior to that, she said, look, you've got no reason to be involved because it's not an ongoing case.
Yeah.
It was, but we were kind of doing fine.
Yeah.
And I said, well, all I want you to do is just to...
print the emails off, put them in the file, so they're at least a date stamped. Yeah,
just so there's this narrative where people see that I'm not. For one, it proves I'm open. I'm transparent. I mean, I'm saying it like this makes me sound really conniving. Me laying an evidence trail. Like
reasons why you should not arrest me, officer.
Yeah, he's the case I've been building over the last 20 years. But I've done that with I rang my duty team not too many years ago on a Saturday morning, and the phone was turned off. So, like, this is the local authorities, the county council's duty social work being turned off. And I go,
listen, shall I tell you a little bit of a funny story? It's not funny, but
I'm wondering whether I should tell the end of this story.
Well, tell the end, and then I'll tell you a little story.
And so similar. I then got a phone call on Monday morning, like, hello, and I went, you weren't turned on, were you? And they went, no, because I left a message. I'd left like an answer phone message. Hello, it's me. Things are going very badly wrong this morning. Help. And they were mortified, but they dodged the bullet. They said, so you're saying things are okay now? I went, no, not really. She went, so you're saying things are okay now? And I went, yeah, whatever.
Wow.
And that was because the Section 17 had been shut 2 weeks earlier. Couldn't they just, because I just said, it's just a continuation of that. And she went, so you're saying it's okay? And I went, yeah, because I just didn't want involvement. Yeah. And that's crap. With hindsight, that's shocking. Yeah, I mean, I've written all this down for my memoirs, and if I die in a mysterious incident,
I'm selling them.
Yeah, no, my lawyer has to release it to the press.
Can you just have access to your little drive thing that you've got going on?
I can give you the password.
But I think there is a human side to this as well, and we have to remember that, because whether we're a safeguard, I'm going to give this example of, a phone when you're on duty. Okay, now many years ago, probably shouldn't be telling this story because it's not funny, but there's a kind of humorous side to it. So I don't know if you remember the Thai tsunami that happened. No, I watched 2006.
Yeah, it was young.
No, it was 2003.
Yes.
2003.
Yes, I remember that very well.
Yeah, because it was over there. So, long story short, and this, I'm just trying to prove the human element to this kind of stuff, because there is a human element to this, and these are people that are doing a job. Basically, the tsunami happened on, as we know, Boxing Day, 2003. So 2003 or 2004? Can't remember.
Is it important to the story?
Probably is, because if anybody was affected by it, then they'll say, "Oh, it's 2003." Anyway, long story short, I worked for an emergency medical assistance company at that point.
I did not know this about you.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, see, you learn something new every day. And I was the manager on call over Christmas. Yeah, probably not the best time for Scott to be on call, because we were at the in-laws, and the mobile phone was kind of...
This story ends badly, I can tell.
Well, I wouldn't say that, but what I'm trying to prove is that there's a human element to these kinds of things. So anyway, Christmas night, had a lovely day, enjoying with the in-laws, nice Christmas, a few glasses of wine, maybe a couple of Baileys, a bit of a shindig in the evening. A
few liqueurs.
The room that we were staying in was so small that, literally you couldn't leave your clothes in there, so left them outside, and the mobile phone, and bear in mind this is before smartphones, because smartphone would have been plugged in beside the bed.
Aye.
Yeah, this was one of them kind of Nokia.
Yeah, bricks.
Nothing ever happened when I was on call. Nobody needed me. Yeah. And next morning, because I left my clothes and my phone outside, I had like 50 missed calls. And all I'm trying to say is, there really is a human element to this.
Yeah.
Mistakes can be made.
Yeah.
And
it's not good enough.
It really isn't.
For a local authority, when there's children, like literally there's children, it's children's welfare. And so your story's...
No,
it's
I know.
An amusing anecdote, but it's not...
But, when you've got... when you've got maybe a hospital in Thailand ringing you up saying that they're going to amputate someone's leg...
Unless you can get bandages there.
Exactly, and then they go and amputate the leg.
How do you sleep at night?
I don't.
All right, that's fair enough. That explains the bags.
Yeah.
Well, that's
baggage and bags.
Yeah.
Yeah. But,
physical and emotional.
There's human stuff going on.
Absolutely, but Yeah.
we're talking about children.
Well, yeah, and I think as well. I mean, I was thinking about this. The caveat to all of this is that I have also known adoptive parents where I've borderline where I thought I needed to call children's social care.
Me too.
And reflecting on that, what I see is families in crisis. I don't see parents maliciously going out to harm children. I see families in crisis, and that might be a combination of expectations, time, parents'
lack of experience,
not coping, sort of unraveling, mental health, children's behaviour, combining with that to families where someone needs to go, whoa, everyone just calm the hell down, breathe. And but then you don't want that brute force. You need someone to come in with knowledge and experience. And I've got a friend who had a support worker, and I'd say this, I don't say this disrespectfully to support workers. No. So investigation happened, support worker was put in place, so there was Section 17 support. What you need is a bit more support. Yeah. Yeah. No one's arguing against that. No. So who are you going to send? It's not Ghostbusters. Who are you going to call? Sorry.
Who are you going to call?
Ghostbusters. So you send a social work, like a social work assistant or a support worker who's got no real developed knowledge of the impact of early adversity or how it works in that child, and is kind of overlaying standardized parenting techniques onto it and exacerbating this situation. I've also had I know situations where the right person's coming and gone, everybody breathe. Yeah. So it can, sometimes it's needed, but you would, we were talking to Elaine Amy, weren't we?
We were.
And she said this idea that, that maybe post-adoption support services need a safeguarding wing. Yeah. People who know the children.
Even if it's just one person who, is kind of flicking through.
Just leads it.
Yeah.
And also you think that with the move to RAAs, that, for example, 5 years ago, it would be...
Yeah, you would be able to wave to them.
Yeah, you'd go...
No, you're not so sure, are you? Because it is separate. And
it's GDPR as well.
Exactly.
So that's one of the barriers I've seen to getting information from to the RAA, even though there was this assurance that wouldn't be affected because the children were... It has affected it, yeah. Well, I know my RAA. I'm not going to name them. Adopt Northeast.
It's quite clear from where you live.
Whatever. The options are pretty lim. But that stuff like databases weren't passed over, and so like my social worker literally was hoping I would ring so that she could say, "What the heck's your address?" I mean, she knew because we'd moved in the interim, so she didn't know quite where it was. And you kind of go, "Oh, that stuff really matters when the poo hits the fan."
Hugely.
So have we come away with like a really depressing podcast?
Yeah,
we've talked about Magdalene babies.
Yeah, I know.
We've talked
about... It does sound like that. How long have we been gone?
118 of your English minutes. No, 1 hour and 18 minutes. That's how they...
Oh, okay. So maybe we just need to do a little dance and a little jig to get us...
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's do that. Let's do a little bit of a...
Or maybe not.
Maybe not. Let's not do that. But it's been lush to get you back in the room together and just to do it in person.
You sound like you want to beat me up or something afterwards.
Well, I'll leave the tape on and you the sound of me. And that's the
I know. Listen, he started recording before I introduced the podcast, and I'm sure there's a few bits that you'll probably listen to and they'll become outtakes. But yes, it has been. And actually, sometimes it's nice to be able to just kind of... face to face. We wouldn't do this on Zoom, that's the thing.
No.
Because the timing wouldn't be right. So,
it's been an absolute pleasure.
Yeah, and
we've got lots of busyness coming over the summer, haven't we? So we've got lots of stuff. And I think we're at a place where we want to be. We really love doing the podcast and we really do all that stuff, but we want to kind of just spread ourselves a little bit into new corners.
We do.
Yeah.
With no borders.
See what you did there? Anyway, Bon Jovi.
Anchovy.